And the light would turn green and away would we go, right? Tell somebody to open the window. Story. So take advantage of every window. Conversation, open window, whatever. Okay. Now we only have just a few springs. There's not an unlimited supply. How many springs do I have left? Not 1,000. A limited supply. So we must treat them all with great care and not be careless with opportunity. Open window, open door. But to take advantage of it. Learn every way possible to take advantage of opportunities that come your way. Now the next season is the season of summer. Probably the best way to illustrate life is the season of summer. Here is present good and evil. Here is present life and death. Here is present opportunity and difficulty. Simply put, in the summer, you must give life like a mother. Give life to your garden. Give life to what you've planted. Give life to a new person you've met like a mother. Then you must protect it like a father. As soon as you've planted the garden, the weeds start to grow. And the bugs start to eat the garden. Every garden will be invaded. Not to think so is naive. That's the challenge of life. That's the great adventure. So to have something valuable at the end of the summer, you must feed it like a mother and protect it like a father. The old prophet said, we must love good and hate evil. We must give life and take life. You must preserve the life of the plants, and you must take the life of the weeds. Or the weeds will take the life of the plants. It has been so arranged to give us a drama, to give us an adventure. That's what makes a good book. Drama, conflict, good and evil, doing what's right or doing what's wrong. If you picked up a book and the first chapter said, everything's fine. Second chapter, everything's just fine. Third chapter, everything's fine. Fourth chapter, everything's fine. Would you keep reading the book? And the answer is no, that's not a good book. But if the first chapter said, this happened and this happened, you say, wow, let me read the second chapter. This went right and this went wrong. Wow, read some more. That's what makes the drama of a good book. That's what makes the drama of our life, right? Fighting the evil, protecting the good, having more virtues than mistakes. I said of Mark Hughes, my friend, his list of mistakes he made, but his list of virtues was so long, it overcame all of his mistakes. And that should be said of all of us. With a long list of virtues, it will overcome our list of mistakes. We're going to make some mistakes, but if we have a long enough list of disciplines and virtues and goodness, it will overcome our mistakes. So make this note, we must all do the work of summer. nourishing our values like a mother and protecting them like a father. Now comes the season of harvest. And there's an interesting phrase used, in due time, when the time is right, when the time comes. On my farm in Idaho, I make wine. And there's a certain time when the grapes are ready for harvest, a certain time. And you may have, if you're selecting the best, more than one. The time is right for these now, the time is right for these a little later. Sometimes it's a matter of just days, for the first harvest, then the second, and then the third. Because the time is right, the time is right. So we must have patience to wait for the time when we get recognition, when we get a harvest, when we get an excellent paycheck, when we get a good bonus, when what we've worked hard on, a friendship, finally has some great moments. A relationship has some fantastic times because we've worked at it. Here's what makes the harvest valuable. More valuable than what you received is to know that you deserved it. In America, if you found a Congressional Medal of Honor, which is given to citizens for outstanding achievement, if you found a Congressional Medal of Honor, would you wear it? And the answer is no. Even though you found it, you wouldn't wear it because you didn't deserve it. This medal that you found belongs to the person who deserved it, not to the person who found it. People would not look at us kindly if we wore the medal we did not deserve. But they look on us with admiration if we have the medal that we deserve, given by the government, given by a person, given by a company, given by anyone. What's greater than the medal, and what's greater than the fortune, what's greater than the bonus, what's greater than the harvest, is the fact that we have earned it. We worked. We got up early. We stayed up late. We fought the enemy. We protected it like a father. We gave it life like a mother. And now we receive great honor. But the greatest honor is not what someone else gives us. The greatest honor is how you feel inside yourself. Those are the seasons. And an understanding of the seasons helps us with our own life, and it helps us as leaders to give guidance and advice to other people as they go through their seasons of life. Next, I've divided personal development into three parts. Personal development into three parts. I think I'm past time here on taking another lunch break. Just go ahead with whatever you were doing there, and I'll be with you in a moment. 11 o'clock, 12 to... No, I'm okay. I'm okay. We're supposed to go till 1:30. So So we have 35 more minutes. Okay. Let's talk about personal development, 3 parts. First is physical. Physical, the body we live in. Bible advice says to us, treat your body like a temple. A temple meaning something you'd take special care of. Don't treat your body like a woodshed, but like a temple. Here's why. The body and the mind work together. Healthy body helps to develop a healthy mind. Our physical body is like a support system so that the mind can think, the heart and soul can believe, and activity can achieve. So all of us need to work on a good, healthy support system. An ancient saying says, sometimes the spirit is willing, but the body is weak, which would not be good, because you need a strong body in order to implement the plans of the spirit, the mind, the imagination. The body sometimes finally does the work that helps turn nothing into something. That's a good study to make, how to turn nothing into something. Here's how it works. First, we use our imagination. Our imagination to think of the possibilities. And the possibilities are illustrated for us every day. People that have accomplished great things show us that it's possible. It's possible to go from nothing to something. It's possible to go from a little to a lot. Lydia's one of the best stories, turning $1 into a fortune. It's now being told around the world, her story. That inspires us all to imagine, wow, what would be possible? The possibilities are endless. The possibilities are unbelievable. Now here's the next step, turning nothing into something. First, to imagine the possibilities. Second, to imagine the possibilities that are possible for me, for us, for you. And to believe that what's possible for someone else is possible for you. So if we imagine the possibilities, and if we believe that some of those possibilities are possible for us, those are the first 2 steps of turning nothing into something. How did this hotel get here? Someone saw it, saw the possibilities before it was here. Is it possible to see this hotel before it's here? And the answer is yes. A dog cannot do that, a bird can't do it, but a human being can do it. See it before it exists. If someone cannot see it before it exists, then it will never exist. This hotel first was in someone's imagination. Second, someone had to believe that it was possible. First was to imagine. Second was to believe it's possible. But we still don't have a hotel. Even though imagination is powerful, and even though faith, believing, is powerful, it still doesn't create reality. What creates reality is number 3, Going to work. Going to work. And make it real. The architect can think about a hotel. The architect can draw a hotel. The architect can make the plans for a hotel. The architect even has what we call the artist's rendering. It's like taking a picture of the hotel that isn't there. Is that possible? To have a picture of the hotel that isn't there? And the answer is yes. Yes. The architect, the genius, can not only imagine it, he can draw it and make a sketch and take a picture of the sketch. Here it is, the hotel that isn't here. But someday it is here. But now for the hotel really to be here, somebody has to go to work. So make this note. The architect needs the bricklayer. And the bricklayer needs the architect. Without the architect's imagination, the bricklayer has no reason to lay the bricks. And without the bricklayer, the architect's imagination finally serves no purpose. So for your life, here's what you must be. You must be both the architect and the bricklayer. You must imagine what's possible. You must believe that it's possible for you. Then you must go to work. Finally, to have good health, you have to go to work. Finally, to achieve a healthy body, you must work at it. Finally, you must do the push-ups. You can read all the books, you can believe it's possible, but then finally you must do the work. That's why I'm sure the ancient formula is the best. 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. Okay? 6 days of work, 1 day of rest. It's important not to get those numbers mixed up. Now, why 6 days of work? Why more work than rest? It's because rest does not build a hotel. Rest does not build good health. You must rest, but you don't get healthy by resting, just resting. You can get rich, but not by resting, but by working. So that's why 6 of work, to build a career, to build a fortune, to build a relationship, to build a hotel, to build a business, with your hands or with your voice, with your heart, with your soul. That's why the physical is so important, is so that you can finally do the work. If you had a great imagination, and if you believed that it was possible, that still won't get you what you want until you go to work. So we learn to embrace the work that creates the miracle. It's the work that creates a polio vaccine. It's the work that finally became an invention known as electricity. It was the hours of work, the hours of experiment. So without the work, nothing is accomplished. So we must be healthy. That's why it's important in personal development to take care of yourself physically so you can do the work. I must come to Mexico City these 2 days and do the work. I can't come here and just lay by the swimming pool. I must stand and do the work. I must sit and do the work. I must speak and do the work. And it's the work that helps people to see. It's the work that helps the words to mean something to the people who listen. So here's the key. Learn to get excited about the work, not the rest, but the work. Yes, we must rest, but only long enough to gather strength to go back to work. Interesting about the seventh day, work 6, and the seventh day could have multi-purpose. I just wrote this the other day, the multi-purpose of the seventh day. And here's part of the list I made. The multi-purpose of the seventh day. Number 1, spirituality. Okay? Church, prayer, sermons. Okay? Next is family. Seventh day for the family. Visit, talk, enjoy. Friendship, the seventh day. Being with friends. Rest. Relax. Change of pace. Here's also part of the list. The seventh day would be a good time to take some time to review the previous 6 days. Where did you go? Who did you see? What did you say? How did it go? Was it a good 6 days? How much did you build? What was your progress? What were your mistakes the last 6 days? To review the last 6 days. The seventh day would be a good time to review the last 6. Then the next step would be to plan the next 6 days. To use the experience of the previous 6 days to make the next 6 days much more valuable. Correcting mistakes, coming up with new ideas, making calls the next 6 days you didn't make the last 6. So the multi-purpose of the seventh day could be very valuable. Okay. Now, we've talked about the physical. Being physically prepared to do the work of the 6 days. The next part of personal development is the body, or the mind. We must now develop a healthy mind so that together a good healthy support system and the mind can work together. Next is the spiritual. Since humans are different than any other life form on earth, we're spiritual beings. As well as physical, mental, we are also spiritual. And here's some of the best advice I can give you on the spiritual, if you are a believer in the spiritual. 3 words to make in your notes. And here they are. Study, practice, and teach. Study, practice, and teach. If there's something you believe in, like spirituality, the key is to study it, and practice it, and teach it. Pass it on to your children. Pass it on to those you have influence. Now we have a strong country because we have strong families, strong citizens. Study, practice, and teach. Now, here's some more under personal development. The 4 steps to success. Number 1, good ideas. My teacher that I met, my special teacher, when I was 25 years old, taught me to keep a journal. I've passed this information on now to everyone I've lectured to in the last 40 years. Keep a journal of good ideas. Journals are for serious students. Serious about capturing a good idea so that you can use it later. If you hear of a good health idea, you write it down. If you hear of a good business idea, you write it down. Like all of you are doing today, taking notes. Keeping a journal for serious students, collecting good ideas. The next step to success is good plans. Everybody needs a good health plan. We need a good plan for a marriage if we're married. We need a good plan for the day if we have something going that needs time. We need a good financial plan for the future. Before we finish, we'll go through that. Before we're finished these 2 days. We need a plan for gathering knowledge. The next step to success is learning to handle the passing of time. We talked about the seasons earlier. Each season takes time. It takes time to plant in the spring, then for the harvest to be ready after summer. The patience to develop, we need to develop to handle this passing of time. Some people plant in the spring and leave in the summer. They don't have the patience to wait until the harvest finally comes. We must have patience with people. We must have patience with our family. It takes time to learn, develop, and grow. It takes time to change. It takes time for a good idea to finally develop. Here's the last one. Give yourself time. Have patience with yourself. Sometimes we get discouraged that we haven't learned it quick enough. We haven't done it fast enough. But give yourself time to change. Give yourself time to grow, develop. Give yourself time to become stronger. Now, the next step to success is learning to solve problems. And I have a simple little formula here for solving problems. Sometimes it's best to solve a problem on paper, not just in your head. Learning to think on paper, we're going to talk more about before the weekend is finished. This is one of the ways now to think on paper. Now some think on computer. But here's what I mean by thinking on paper. If you have a problem to solve, take a piece of paper and put a line down the center. And on one side, put the problem. And just write it out. Write out the problem. Take it out of your head and write it out so you can see it. Sometimes our head is so busy with so many things that this is a good project. Just state the problem on paper on one side. Then on the other side is the solutions and the answers. Now let me give you 3 good questions to ask to come up with the answers to a problem. Here's the first one. What could I do myself? No use going any further if you can solve it yourself. What could I do? Then you just start making a list of what you could do. Number 1, number 2, I could do number 3. Then you analyze. You say, well, number 1 would take too long. Number 2, I'm not sure. Number 3, that might be the answer. We call these working papers. Working papers. Here's the problem. Here's what I might potentially do. And if that still doesn't seem to be the best answers to the problem, here's the second question. What could I read? Is there a book on my problem? Maybe someone spent a lifetime dealing with this problem. They wrote a book on it, and you could read the book in a couple of hours. It would be valuable. What could I read? Or maybe you've taken some notes in the past, and you could go back and review those notes. What could I read from my journal? What could I read from my studies? Okay. What could I read from the Bible? What could I read that might give me an answer? So then you list. Here's the book. Got part of the answer. Here's the book. This guy's crazy. Just working papers, right? Now, if you still don't have the answer, what could I do or what could I read? Here's the third question to ask. Who could I ask? Who could I ask that might give me the solution, the answer to this problem? Now, under this note, put this. Don't ask first. Don't ask someone else first for an answer until first you've tried to solve it yourself, or first you've done the reading. Then, if you haven't found the answer, then ask. But don't ask first, because it's best if you can solve it all by yourself. It's best from your research then if you can solve it. But if that still doesn't do it, then ask. Because then if you ask, somebody will be happy if they know you've tried to solve it yourself. You've read the books, you've searched for the answer, you still don't have it. We all love to help people that first of all try to help themselves. We love to help people that first try to help themselves. My daughter Linda she was great. Before she got married, she used to travel a lot. She'd come to me and say, Daddy, I'm headed for Thailand, Bangkok. I've saved up my money. I'd say, wonderful. Congratulations. And she said, you know, some of the girls wanted to do this. I said, no, I got to save my money. They said, we got to buy this. I said, no, I got to save my money. And I've saved up $1,000. I said, Linda, congratulations. That's wonderful. I'm on my way to Thailand. I said, fantastic. She said, now to make the trip, I only need a couple of $1,000 more. And she knew that the $2,000 that she was going to ask me for was easy if she worked really hard to put together the first $1,000. Okay. She knew that if she came and asked me for the $3,000 to go to Thailand, the answer probably would be no. But if she really worked hard and showed me how hard she worked for the first $1,000, then the next $2,000, easy. We love to help people who first work hard to help themselves. Okay. Learning to solve problems. Now, here's the next subject before we take our lunch break. This subject is called the 5 abilities. Under personal development, these are some good abilities to acquire. First is the ability to absorb, the ability to get the information, the ability to be impressed by something valuable. Absorb means to pay attention, to see what you can see, hear what you can hear, read what you can read. Take everything in. Every day, life is like a drama. Make sure you're there to experience it and learn from it and see what's happening. I have a friend that's so good at this. Better for him to go to Acapulco, come back and tell you about it, than to go yourself. And the reason is, if he goes, he won't miss anything. He sees the people, he sees the colors, he sees the sunset, he sees the dynamics of business, the marketplace. He sees the young, he sees the old. He sees everything when he goes. He gets it. Then when he comes back, his communication skills are so great. When he talks, you can feel the water lapping on your feet. When he talks, you can smell the aroma of the food. When he talks, you can see the colors and the people. Because when he was there, he got it. Now he has the gift of telling it. And those are two great gifts, to get it and to tell it. He can make you feel like you're in Acapulco, having dinner, drinking the wine, seeing the people, watching the kids play. Because when he goes, he doesn't miss anything. He takes it all in and puts it in his mental bank, and then it's available now to share. That's a gift. Absorbing. It's a challenge these 2 days to get everything. I know it is. The drama of the occasion, the people, some testimonials you're going to hear, some people you're going to meet. To get it all. It's hard work, 2 days. But see, these 2 days now will be valuable to go and share with your family, with other people. Experiences that you also remember yourself. So that's the first ability, is to absorb. This friend of mine can also read a 200-page book in 45 minutes. And then tell you about the book and make it more fascinating than if you read it yourself. But when he reads, he gets it. When he reads, he remembers. When he reads, he sees. When he reads, he uses his imagination. Now, when he shares, it's all there. It doesn't just disappear like smoke. Sometimes someone says, "Where were you last Monday?" We say, "Wow, I can't remember where I was last Monday." Who did you see? Oh, who did I see? I don't know. So the key is to work on that. Work on that. Say, while I've got this day, I'm going to see all I can, experience all I can. And that's number 2. The first ability is to get it. The second ability is to respond. Let it touch you. Let the sad things make you sad. A month ago, I was in India. And I saw some sights that made me sad. 3 weeks ago, I was in St. Petersburg, Russia. And I went to the ballet. I only had one evening. I said to the staff, "Get me a ticket, whatever's playing. I've only got one evening to go to this old 150-year-old theater in St. Petersburg, Russia, with the balconies on the side. Special balcony where the Tsar used to sit and watch the performances. Old theater. Every seat was taken. It was a fabulous ballet. The music was incredible. The dance was unbelievable. But I had a chance to go. And my experience in St. Petersburg, Russia, at the ballet was happy, joyful, ecstasy. 2 weeks before, my experience in India, some of it was sad, break your heart. But the key is to experience both the joy and the sadness, so that you'll have that available to share with someone. Because we must speak of those things which make us sad as well as those things which make us happy. Let life touch you is the key here. Let the happy things make you happy. Let the sad things make you sad. Because that's the mixture of who we are. Next, and we've talked about this earlier, develop the ability to reflect. To reflect. To go back over. So I talked about the seventh day, multi-purpose seventh day. But it's not a bad idea at the end of the day to go back over the day. You could wait till the seventh day, but if you took just a few minutes at the end of the day to review the day, that would be valuable. At the end of the month, if you reviewed the month, that would be valuable. At the end of the year, if you sat down either by yourself or with your family, some things you must do with family or with your wife or husband, and sometimes you must do it just by yourself. Go back over the year. Take your calendar, right, just go back over. Wow, here's what I could have done. Let it slide. I'm going to make next year much better based on this past year. To reflect. Here's what it does. It makes experience more valuable when you go back over it. It just makes it more powerful to review it, to go back over it. It takes work, but it makes it more alive, so that when you get ready to share, it's there. Next, develop the ability to act. And we've talked about that. Sometimes action must be immediate. If you're standing in the street, someone reminds you the taxi's coming at 50 miles an hour, you must now act immediately. Not next week, not this afternoon, not tomorrow. Some dangers you must act immediately. Next. Some opportunities you must act immediately, because the window is open such a short period of time. But if we act, if we put to work what we've absorbed and what we've felt, what we reviewed, the results of that work can be fantastic. It doesn't necessarily have to be a hotel for the community. It can be good health. It can be a career. It can be a relationship that you've worked on. Now it's developed uniquely. And now here's the last ability, and we'll take lunch. Next is the ability to share. The ability to share. And we talked earlier about producing more than you need for yourself to live the higher life. But here's some more sharing. The most valuable of sharing is your time. It's the most expensive commodity you have to give. It's not your money, but your time. And almost equally valuable with your time that you have to share is your ideas. your experiences, your knowledge. A book you've read that's helped you solve problems. You pass the idea of that book on to someone else. Here's the key in buying good books, right? If you find a good book, you buy one to read and some to share. Okay? One to read and some to share. There's a little book called The Richest Man. Many of you have heard me talk about it. The Richest Man in Babylon helped me become a millionaire by age 32. I'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. I've given away hundreds and hundreds of these little books, right? One to transform my life, one book to transform my life, and then some to give away. Find somebody that deserves it. Give them the book. Find somebody that deserves it. Give them the book. The book you give is just as valuable as the book you write. Because the book you give may transform someone's life. Not just the book you read to transform your life, but your life gets better if you become a person who shares. Who shares. Then there's something interesting about sharing. Sharing enlarges your capacity. If you give what you've got, you enlarge your capacity. It doesn't say if you give, it's gone. No, if you give, it's invested. And if the investment now has a larger return, you now must be a bigger person in order to receive it. If this glass is full of water, if it's full, question, can it hold any more if it's full? If the glass is full, can it hold any more? The answer is yes. Yes. If you pour some out. Got it? Yes, the glass can hold more, even though it's full. If you pour some out, you can hold some more. So that's what sharing is. Pouring some out. A book that made you rich, you recommend it or you give it. At least recommend it. Here's the book that helped me make my fortune. You tell someone. That's a gift. That's sharing. Not just your time, but your ideas. An idea can change somebody's life. There's nothing so powerful as an idea. Not only whose time has come, but an idea that comes at the right time. A book at the right time in somebody's hands changes their life. A book on better health at the right time changes somebody's health. A book at the right time changes someone's marriage, saves someone's marriage. A book at the right time saves someone from going bankrupt. A book at the right time saves someone from having a heart attack. A book at the right time. And if you're known as a person who shares ideas at good times, wherever you go, you've got a little poem to share, you've got a word to share, you've got something to give. Even if it's a little poem, you just share it. I just published my granddaughter's book of poems. She wrote when she was 12. Natalie wrote these poems when she was 12. And I just published the book. And the art illustrations are by her brother, Nathaniel. It's great to have a book published when you're 13. Right? It's fantastic. I specialize in being a grandfather. now my specialty. I make money, I make fortunes, you know, I travel the world, I give lectures like today, but my specialty is grandfather. I am so good. So now my granddaughter has her own book to share. Here are the poems I wrote. And it's on my website, jimrohn.com. Any of you are on the website, jimrohn.com. Her book is there. It's doing well. But having plenty to share. And the greatest thing to share is time. Next greatest is ideas. Or a kind word. Not just your money or your treasure, but share who you are and share what you know. That's valuable. I want to talk about communications. Probably one of the most important skills ever to learn is the skill of communication. How to affect someone else with our language. Of all the places not to be lazy, it's in learning communication skills. I talked earlier about the fact that I learned communication starting at age 25. At least I started learning it in terms of business. We all have to learn communication from the time we're just small children, then going to school, then out working, then getting married. But the biggest test of our communication, of course, is using it the 6 days that we're working to make a living, earn wages, or make our fortune, being a leader, working with other people. It's a very, very important skill. Words are so powerful. Words have almost the power of God. It says, in the beginning, God spoke and said, let there be light. And there was light. Giving us the idea that God's words created the light. Now, humans can come very close to creating light. Not physical light, but we call it enlightenment, understanding. There's two ways to see. One is with your eyes, called sight, and the other way to see is with your mind, which is called insight. And by our own language, it's possible for us to help someone to see. Sometimes we call it turning on the lights. And by the words we speak, by the language we use, we can help someone to see something that they never saw before. We may give someone a vision of the future that they never had before. We may be able to describe success in such a way that someone has never heard it before. If someone cannot see how they can be successful, and you come along and tell them your story, choosing the best words you can, when you finish your testimonial, the person that listened to you may now say, now I can see. Before I met you, I was in the dark. While you were talking, some things occurred to me. I could see what I couldn't see before. I was blind to the possibilities, but now that you have spoken to me, given me your testimonial, I can now see how it's possible for me to be successful. Being able to see, it's a very important skill, helping somebody to see. In one of my Herbalife trainings, I said to the audience, someone says to me, I cannot see myself as president's team, member of the president's team. I said, then you need to borrow my glasses. These glasses, they're special made glasses. They are called president's team glasses. And if I was to let you borrow these glasses and you were to put them on, you would say, yes, there I am, president's team, using these special glasses. And that's all we need in helping people to see. Let them see through our eyes what they cannot see at the moment. Maybe from someone else they may be able to see, but since we are there, we share our story, and like a better set of glasses that they put on, because of the use of our language, we help them to see. We might help someone to see the problem. We might help someone to see the answer. It's very important to help people sometimes to see the past. To see the past. To see the mistakes that we've made. Then it's very important to help someone see the future, to see the potential, the possibilities, to see what's available for them as a person. Sometimes we help a company to see. We help a country to see. We help our community to see a project that they couldn't see before. Now we describe our vision of this project, and we get some of the leaders of the community together, and by our language we describe the need for the project, the potential of the project, the possibilities, that if we all work together, it is very possible to have this project. And by the time we have finished our presentation, now the group says, yes, for our community, for the people of our community, this is something we need. We can see it, we believe it, we can achieve it, and soon it is there. It is possible. So language is a very powerful force. And I have 4 steps to achieve good communication. 4 simple steps. The first one is, have something good to say. If you're going to communicate, we can only draw from our experience. We can only draw from what you know. You cannot speak that which you do not know. So part of good communication is research. Reading the books, reading the testimonials, reading the information, making notes of our experiences, where we went and what we saw and what we heard. Part of that is in what we talked about earlier, be a good observer, learn to absorb what's happening. And the more we absorb, the more we see, the more we read, the more we understand, the more we have to draw from when we get ready to speak. If we speak to teenagers, we need to be able to speak their language. When we speak to retired people, we need to be able to speak their language. And having something good to say takes time, takes preparation. But here's the way to look at it. All of our lives we're getting ready for next week. All of our lives we've been getting ready for this year. All of our lives we've been getting ready for next year. And if we learn to use the sum total of all of our lives, the people we've met, the sermons we've heard, the books we've read, the observations we've made, the notes that we put in our journal and put in our head. It's like making deposits in the bank, because you cannot write a check unless you have something in the bank. The same is true when you get ready to speak. You must have something in your heart, something in your soul, something in your mind, something in your memory, right? All of that now becomes available when you speak. And the more you have stored away, the more you've written, the more you've read, the more you've looked, the more you've observed, the more you remember, the more effective now is your communication. So first is to have something good to say. And here's 4 words to help you with having something good to say. Number 1 is interest. Interest. Develop an interest in people, business, government, taxes, how business works, the economy, social, personal. Just develop an interest in life and people. Be curious, like a child wanting to know what's behind the door. What's the meaning of this? 2 plus 2 is 4. And the child says, why? Why is it 4? And if we learn to ask questions like a child, instead of just taking everything for what it is, ask questions. Why is it that way? The biggest word in a child's vocabulary is why. Why? You say, just because it is. Why? Why is it just because it is? So develop an interest in life and people. Next is fascination. If you're fascinated with life and society, how it works, what's happening, what's going on. Interested people want to know, does it work? Fascinated people want to know, how does it work? They look deeper than just the surface. Here's how a person behaves. We're interested in that. Then we ask, why do they behave this way? We talked about it earlier, being curious and fascinated with. Some people are excited and some are not. Some say yes and some say no. Some believe, some don't believe. Some walk away feeling their value was multiplied for what they spent in money and time. Some people walk away and say, I don't think I got my money's worth. Interesting. I did a lecture once in Canada. 3,000 people. And before the lecture, the people that put up money to attend the lecture were told, if you don't like the seminar, you can ask for your money back. So when the seminar was finished, and now 3,000 people are leaving, there was one lady who came up and said, I really wasn't that happy with the presentation. Isn't that fascinating? 2,999 people were happy, and she was unhappy. Isn't that unbelievable? It looks like there would have been at least 3 or 4 more unhappy, or maybe 10, or maybe 100 out of 3,000. But she was the only one. So somebody mentioned that to her. We had 3,000 here tonight. 2,999 walked away happy. And we're curious as to why you were the only one out of 3,000 that was not happy. Would you please explain why? So she started to try to explain why. Then she became a bit embarrassed when she started thinking about it. 2,999 were happy. She was the only one unhappy. I don't know whether she thought, I could spend this money for something. And then finally she said, no, no, I'm sorry. I do not wish my money back. Once she thought it over, right? So we're curious as to human behavior. We have two children. One behaves one way, one behaves another way. One, all it takes is a look, and they correct. Another one, wow, we try everything. One is easy, one is hard. That's interesting, fascinating. Here's how I've also learned to look at life, with fascination rather than frustration. It's easy to quickly be frustrated, but if you could find yourself easily to be fascinated rather than frustrated, it helps the day go better. I've learned to do this. It's like turning on a little switch. When you're tempted to be frustrated, just flip the switch and become fascinated instead of frustrated. In Los Angeles, I'm on my way to the airport to catch my plane. The traffic's moving not 1 inch. My plane leaves in 1 hour. I'm now fascinated. Really. Now, I must admit, it doesn't work every time. But if it just works part of the time, it's helpful, right? If it just works half the time, it's better. But if you practice this now, when you're tempted to be frustrated, if you say, I must see if I can be fascinated rather than frustrated with this situation. It's not going to work every time, but when it does, you'll be pleasantly surprised. And it seems like we learn more if you try this little trick, turning frustration into fascination. Sometimes people will think you're a little strange. But that's okay. Now, the next key word for learning to have something to say is sensitivity. Learning to feel what other people feel. There's an Indian saying, American Indian saying, that says, you should walk in someone else's moccasins. Walk for a while in someone's shoes. In other words, try to be them for a while to see why they are like they are, why the situation is like it is. Before we criticize or even before we analyze, sometimes we should put ourselves in someone else's place. Try to be them for a while. Say, if I was that person in that place, how would I feel? That kind of training is very valuable, and it gives us something better to say when we get ready to communicate. Sensitivity. Part of sensitivity is trying to relate your life that might match up with someone else. If you've had children, I've had children, now we can communicate because we've both had a similar experience. If you've been lost in the forest, and I've been lost in the forest, we have something in common to talk about. That kind of communication makes it easier to talk to someone. If someone's been through a traumatic experience, I've been through one, I can relate to that person because I know how it feels. I've been there. If someone's broke, they've lost all their money and it's been all swept away, I know what that's like. I can sympathize with that. I've been there. Someone said, well, I had to start over. I said, I know how that feels. I know how that feels. I've had to start over more than once. Had it going pretty good, all flew apart. Had to start over. Okay. I lost my health, had to rebuild it. If that's happened to you, you could understand what that's like. I lost my health, had to rebuild it, go back to doing the push-ups and restoring my health. That kind of sensitivity, that kind of awareness, being able to relate to people, makes you a better communicator. Now, the fourth word is simply knowledge. Working knowledge. Anything useful, any idea or poem or saying or quote. I've got a book of quotes that people have picked out of my journals and my lectures and seminars. Sometimes that's helpful, to just give a quote that somebody can remember and use in the future. We call this working knowledge. Knowledge that'll help you communicate, build a bridge between you and someone else. So all of those things now help us to have something good to say in achieving good communication. Now, here's number 2. First, we must have something good to say. Next, we must say it well. We must communicate it so it can be understood, using the best language we can, the language that will make it meaningful. I developed a little talk that I used to give to service clubs years ago. It was called the 4 ifs that make life worthwhile. The 4 ifs that make life worthwhile. I used to give this as a breakfast speech, a luncheon speech. The first if was, life is worthwhile if you learn. If you learn. I teach the kids in school, nothing worse than being stupid, so make sure you learn what you're being taught here. Being broke is bad, but being stupid is what's really bad. And what's really, really bad is being broke and stupid. That's the worst, unless you're sick. Sick, broke, and stupid. That's bad. What makes it even worse, though, is being ugly, I guess. That would be the worst. Ugly, sick, broke, and stupid. Life's most negative scenario. But we must know. So life is worthwhile if we learn. Now, there's 2 ways to learn. One is learn from your own experiences, both negative and positive. Sometimes a negative experience turns out to be positive. They say if you survive your first heart attack, you may now live to be a very old person. Because that first heart attack, if you survived it, was a wake-up call. The alarm bells went off. So now you start making all the changes. You change your diet. You change to exercise, start jogging, do all the things to now keep from having the second heart attack. And this new health regime, new health plan that you are now engaged in may help you to live to be very old. But the reason you started on this plan was the heart attack. A negative experience, but it turned positive. So here's what we call it, a positive negative. Something negative that you use to turn positive in your life. That's how we learn from our own experiences. Next is to learn from someone else's experiences. I've been invited to come these 2 days and share my experiences. Why not pick up some ideas from someone else that you wouldn't necessarily have to go through to learn yourself? If someone's written a book, you could read it, maybe save yourself going through some tough times, tragic times, making some terrible mistakes, because you read this book ahead of time. And if you read this book ahead of time, it could save you from making great mistakes. Learning from other people. So that was my first point. Life is worthwhile if you learn. Second, I said, life is worthwhile if you try. You must try something with what you've learned. We say to our children, give it a try, see what happens. I don't know if you can do it, but you've got to try to see. If we put this bar up 2 feet high and ask the children to jump over this bar 2 feet high, some will say, I can't. Some will say, I'm not sure. Some will say, easy. But how are we going to really know? We really know when everyone runs, sees if they can jump. Next one runs, sees if they can jump 2 feet. Now, what if a child ran and jumped, but they knocked the bar down? Does that mean you can't jump 2 feet? And the answer is no. We put the bar back up and you try it again. Try it again. This time try harder. Okay? So the key is to try at least, see, and if you fall short, you try again, and you keep trying until you learn. Okay? So life is worthwhile if you learn. Second, it's worthwhile if you try. Next, life is worthwhile if you stay. If you plant in the spring, you should stay at least through the summer to see how it works out. Don't plant in the spring and then when it gets hot, you leave and say, well, it's too hot for me. Once you've started a cycle of something, the key is to see it through. Here's someone who builds a foundation for a house, then they leave it and go off somewhere else and build another foundation. Then they go off and leave that one and go somewhere else, build another foundation. They have these foundations across the country, but nothing ever finished. Start, but never finish. So the key is, if you start, lay the foundation, then build the walls, build the roof, finish it. Finish this one. Doesn't mean you have to keep building forever, but once you've started, the key is to see it through, see it through. Once you've planted in the spring, see it through. You don't have to plant next spring if you don't want to, but now that you've planted, hang in there till this cycle is finished to see what happens. My parents taught me, if you go to the ball game, stay till it's over. That's good practice. Who are these people that leave before the game is finished? Spilling soft drinks down your back. Trying to get out. You say, well, my team is losing. That's when you should stay. What if the team was losing and they left? You say, no, if you're going to play the game, you have to play till it's over, even if you're behind. Even if it looks like you're going to lose, you have to stay. You can't leave just because you're behind. Same is true if you go see the game. Stay till it's over. It's good practice. Stay till it's over. You don't have to go to the next game, but if you do go, you stay. Okay. If you do start, you try to finish. So, life is worthwhile if you stay. Now, the fourth one is, life is worthwhile if you care. Caring is a great human quality. And then I used to say this: if you care at all, you'll get some results. If you care at all, you'll get some results. If you care enough, you'll get fantastic results. So that was my little presentation in speeches I used to give. High schools, colleges, luncheon speeches, when I started my career a long time ago. This is my 39th year, so it was a long time ago. Next, in saying it well, there are several things in saying it well. One is practice saying it till you get better. Practice. Keep saying it till it gets easier. If you start doing training, at first it may seem difficult, but if you keep doing it, you'll get better. Your words will come easier. The ideas will begin to flow. Okay. Practice with the idea of getting better. Repetition doesn't mean that you'll get better, but you repeat in order to try to get better. The next part of saying it well is style. Develop your own style. Some people talk more with their hands, with gestures. Some people, facial expressions, big smile when they speak. The key is to develop your style. You may learn from some other people, but don't copy someone else. Be yourself. But learn to express yourself as best you possibly can. Next is brevity. Learning to say things in a short period of time instead of taking too long. When Jesus was putting together his leaders, the disciples, story was he wandered around the countryside, and every once in a while he would say, "You follow me." See, that's very short. No 1 hour, 2 hours, just you follow me. Wow. Now, how could he be so effective and still be so brief? And here's the answer: for who he was. For who he was. That he didn't have to say. Who you are now is your reputation. If you have the right reputation, sometimes you don't have to say much when you arrive. Your reputation has said a lot. So part of the key is to build a good reputation that speaks for you. Here's what this person is known for. Here's what this person believes. That reputation is already out there. Here's what this person will do. Here's what they will not do. That reputation is already there. So you don't have to explain that. That's pretty well known who you are. Now, it's also possible if someone didn't know your reputation and you met them and you talked with them, they would begin to feel that you are a person of great reputation. They would sense it. They would feel it. You wouldn't have to say it. It would be felt. So that's now saying it well. First, have something good to say. Second, saying it well. Also, saying it well is don't fail to say it. Practice every time you get a chance. If you write a letter, write the best letter you can. It's called practicing communication. When you're asked to speak, do the very best you can, because you need both the practice and to be effective. Next, And this one's important in communication, and that's to read your audience. This is a different kind of read now than reading a book. Reading your audience means to see how you're doing. If I'm talking to someone, I must look to see if I'm getting across, see if I'm making sense. Sometimes we even ask, does that make sense? Someone says, yes, that makes sense. So we even ask for a comment. There's no use going on if what we're saying doesn't make sense. So we learn to read little things that help us to know which way to go with our conversation. Should I get stronger? Should I get easier? It's like fishing. When you go fishing and you get the fish on the line, you can't pull too fast, you lose them. And you can't give them too much line, you lose them. It's just enough. Easy, pull, easy, pull, easy, pull. That's called fishing. Okay? So with your children, you got to be strong but not too strong. And you got to be easy but not too easy. Easy, strong, easy. So how do you pick up the signals, whether to be stronger or easier for good communication? Here's some things to consider. First, you pick up the signals of what you see. What you see. If someone's got their arms folded and their chin tucked down and they're frowning, wow, you say, wow, this is going to be tough. Right? Looks like this person is closed, shut down, skeptical. You can tell by how they look, what you see. So pick up the signals of what you see. If someone is leaning toward the door, that means you got to hurry because it looks like they're almost gone. Just get going. Being brief also is good practices, practicing talking to kids, because kids don't have all day to listen to something. If you talk to kids for 30 seconds, they say, how long is this going to take? Right? So you have to learn to say it fast. These are part of the signals. First, the signal is what we see. Second is the signal of what we hear. If we speak, someone speaks back to us. Then we can tell how to continue from what they said. Their conversation helps us to judge whether to be stronger, whether to be easier, find some more illustrations, come up with some stronger ideas. Part of that's based on what we hear. So we learn to judge our communication from what we see. Part of it is what we hear. Here's another big part of it is what we feel, the emotions. The emotions. Here's where the women are probably better than the men. Picking up emotional signals. We often hear a woman say, it doesn't feel right. A man says, what does that mean? What does that mean? It doesn't feel right. Man says, it looks right, sounds right. The woman says, but it doesn't feel right. And these emotional signals are very important. Women seem to have this built-in antenna. They pick up the emotional signals. Mothers have it. In the middle of the night, the baby cries. Mama's awake. Papa sleeps. Right? She sleeps near the surface. Mothers sleep near the surface. And the least little something, and mothers are awake. Women awake. Something. In the middle of the night, she tells her husband, go look, go look. And he says, no, everything's fine. She says, go look. He says, okay. So he gets out of bed, he goes downstairs, and the front door is open. How did she know? They just know. I don't know how they know. It's one of those mysteries. Years ago, when I was building a couple of businesses and I was hiring people, I would have a woman that worked for me to sit in on the interview. And when I was finished with the interview of this person, I knew what I heard and I knew what I saw, but when this person left, I would ask her, how did you feel? How did you feel about this person? And she would say, well, I felt fine. I felt good. Or she would say, I don't know, something wasn't quite right. Now, I didn't every time base my decision on that, not every time. But every time I did listen. I did listen. Because I knew she had a better sense of how she felt emotionally than I did. Now, men can learn it, but women seem to have it built in. It's a great advantage. Sometimes a man will keep talking, where a woman would say, wow, this is not the time to keep on talking because of something she felt. It's an advantage in communication. So here's the key. Pick up every signal you can. Pick up every signal you can. Emotional, sight, hearing, so that you can judge how to proceed. Whether to wait for another time. This isn't the moment. Rather than going on. This would be a good time to stop. Another time would be better. This is good communication technique. Good communication skills. Okay. Now here's the fourth way to achieve good communication, and that's intensity. Powerful emotions, powerful feelings. Here's what's effective. Words loaded with emotion. Strong feeling. Commitment. Vision of the future. Dedication. Anger. Love. There's all kinds of human emotions. The key is to get those emotions to work for us and not against us. Get emotions to work for you, not against you. Emotions must be schooled, must be educated. Also, emotions must be measured when you're talking. Intensity must be measured. So we choose our words wisely when we speak, and we also try to measure our emotion. We don't want an atomic explosion of emotion for a small point. For a small point. It's called too big emotion for such a small point. Sometimes kids have a valid observation when they say, you're making too big a deal. You're making too big a deal out of a little deal. You're making it too big. And sometimes kids are right. Sometimes to try to convince somebody or scare somebody, we make what's a little deal into such a big deal. But that's called poor communication. Poor communication. Now also, if it's a big deal and we use very little emotion, that doesn't make sense. So it's the proper amount of emotion for the occasion. That's the key. Well-chosen words, measured emotion. When an actor on Broadway does a performance, they must learn to use the language and the emotion. Just enough, but not too much, and not too little, That'd be ridiculous. So the actor learns to measure what's said and what to deliver in emotion. Next, in communication, it's called tools of last resort. Tools of last resort. Emotions you don't want to use unless, there's no hope left. It's not happening, and you might fall back on these tools of last resort. But you got to use them last. Not front, not up front, not often, but last. And here's some examples. Your temper. Explosive temper. That you must save for a special occasion when it may be called for. If you used it every day, 2, 3 times a day, lost your temper 4 or 5 times a day, see, after a while it becomes ineffective. After a while it's not valuable. But if you save it, then when the occasion calls for it, you just explode. But the key is to use it as a last resort. The Bible record shows that Jesus lost his cool like 3 or 4 times. 3 or 4 times in his career. 3 or 4 times in 3.5 years. That's a pretty good ratio. 3 or 4 times in 3.5 years. Not 3 or 4 times a day. No. 3 or 4 times, maybe a year, or 3 or 4 times in 3 years. Now it's effective. There was one example when he lost his cool, and he took a whip and drove everyone out of the temple and kicked over the tables and screamed and yelled like a Comanche. And everybody heard about it. But not every day. He didn't kick the tables and scream and yell every day. He saved it. So you've got that now? Save it for last resort, when it can really be effective. Okay. Next is sarcasm. You have to be careful of sarcasm. It can be useful, but only as a last resort. Who do you think you are? See, that can be effective, but not with everybody, not every conversation, not every day. Some things you must be just really careful about, because they can cause more harm than good. And you don't want to cause more harm than good. Matters of the heart are delicate. Matters of the heart, matters of the conscience are delicate. You've got to be careful. You can't operate on the heart with a hatchet. No. If you were about to go under for the heart operation, and you heard the doctor say, "Hand me the hatchet," you'd wake up. Say, no. You operate on the heart with light, easy precision. Light, easy precision. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to people. You're dealing with the heart. Corazón. You're dealing with the heart. You're dealing with the soul. You're dealing with the spirit. So you've got to be careful. Even though you want to be strong, you still have to be careful, so you don't cause more harm than good. We have to be careful even of teasing. Teasing. I don't know how to say that in Spanish, but teasing. Even husband and wife have to be careful of teasing each other, because it's too easy to cross the line where teasing can become cruelty. Instead of fun, instead of teasing fun, it crosses the line and becomes more cruel than fun. Does that make sense? Yes. So always be careful. It's okay to have a little fun, but you don't want to tease or to cross the line where the fun now becomes cruelty, more cruel. Here's another one, scolding. Scolding. We must be careful even with our children, scolding, because it can be so damaging if you don't do it correctly. Where have you been? See, that's really, especially if you did it in front of other people. If you did it in front of other people, someone walks in late and you say, "Where have you been?" See, that's tough language. And you shouldn't use it unless there's no hope left and you have to use it. But you just don't use it because you can use it. You save it. Here's one more. The more you care, the stronger you can be. The more you care, the stronger you can be. If we know someone really cares for us, we will let them use some strong, powerful language if they really care. I don't mind the minister consigning my soul to hellfire for my sinful ways, as long as he does it with tears and not with joy. There are some conversations when you have with your children or whoever, there must be tears. If there's no tears, then the conversation doesn't make sense. Sometimes the tears must be there to illustrate how much you care as you speak to someone, speak to a child. So, tools of last resort. Save it. Save it. It's like profanity. Profanity. If a man uses it every day, all day, all day, all day, profanity, cusses, swears, all day, now it loses its effectiveness. They just don't mind John. He's always cussing. He's always swearing. He's always using profanity. So now it has no effect. But for someone who doesn't use it, the day they use it, everyone says, "Wow, this person doesn't usually talk like that." See, you got to save it for the moment when it's effective. It's like a mama who screams all day. She screams all day at her children. She just screams all day, screams all day. Finally, the kids get used to it. Someone comes to visit and they say, "Don't mind Mama, she's just a screamer." Right? She just screams all day. But now the day comes when the little 3-year-old boy is headed for the street and there's a truck coming and Mama screams. Nobody pays any attention. Now may be disaster. So Mama should have saved up her screams until the time when it really counted. Now when she screams, the world stops. Everybody stops. Okay. So you can see what I mean here. Tools of last resort makes for good communication. The next part of communication is learning to be persuasive, becoming a persuader, not just a presenter, but a persuader. Presenting means people may listen politely. Persuading means people may now go to work. They may now act on what you say. Yes, it's true, we want to present well enough for someone to listen, but we want to be persuasive enough for them to change, or to try, or to do something with what we present. So here's some good ideas now on becoming a good persuader. First is to become a good storyteller. Learning to keep stories handy in your mind and in your notebook. Stories of young people, because if you're going to talk to young people, you need young people's stories. Stories of retired people. So if you're talking to retired people, you've got some stories. Stories of young married people, so you can give them advice. Just got married, here's some good advice. And then you tell some stories. Stories of some who did it right, stories of some who did it wrong. Some who built their house on the rock, and some who built their house on the sand. Some who allowed themselves to be persuaded in the wrong direction, influenced. My teacher taught me this: never mistake the power of influence. Influence. Influence is both subtle and powerful. It's subtle in that we might let someone influence us in the wrong direction, but they do it subtly over a period of time. Subtle language that persuades us to change our mind, persuades us to go the wrong direction. So influence is both subtle and powerful. We wouldn't let somebody push us off course. We wouldn't let someone kick us off course, but we might let someone nudge us just a little at a time, little at a time. We'd say to someone, "How come you're way over here?" Say, "I don't know." Say, "Well, didn't you feel that elbow in your back?" Said, "Yes, but I didn't think much about it. That was it. Just a little push, little push, little push. Over a period of time, little push, and then you're way over here." Say, "Wow, now I understand. I got way over here." That little push. Not a big explosion, just a little push. Okay. So be careful of influence. We teach from our stories. Some friends of mine, mother, father, both unique, good parents. One boy in school got around these kids, went this way. The other boy in school got around these kids and went this way. One went to jail, and one became successful businessman. And both really, the major part of where they ended up 15, 20 years later, the major part of it was influence. This boy got around these, went this way. This boy got around these kids and went this way. So we have to, with our stories, teach influence. Then it's possible to resist the wrong influence. There's the story of two boys that were followed after they left home. One became a drunk and a scoundrel and a thief. And he was asked, "How did you turn out like this, to be a drunk and a scoundrel and a thief?" And this man said, "That's what my father was, a drunk and a scoundrel and a thief. What else would you expect from me? But they asked the other son, who had become very successful. And they asked him, how did you become very successful? And he said, I didn't want to be like my father. Interesting. That it is possible for one to yield to the influence in the negative way, and the other one to use it as a positive. As a positive. And it's a mystery why one chooses to use the excuse, my father was this way, and the other used it as a reason to succeed, saying, I didn't want to be like my father. Stories. Stories. I tell the Girl Scout cookie story. Some of you have heard it or listened to it, I'm sure. Just before